On this
Great. Am I the only person from a charity here? I feel like maybe I'm a bit of an interloper. I'm also standing between you and lunch, which is not comfortable. Okay, our mission is more people reading more, and as David said, we do that through spreading reading by working with libraries. So I'm very much coming at this from a library perspective, and with a message that if we're talking about growing the readers of tomorrow, we ignore libraries at our peril. Really love to see a kind of opening of minds to the possibilities, and really hope we can avoid tying ourselves up in kind of e-lending knots. And because I think there's a much bigger game to play. We talked about the mass market, and boy, do libraries have a mass market. In the UK, there are 370 million visits to libraries every year. And I think they're leading some very interesting consumer trends. There are changes in consumer behavior that it would be really interesting to look at collectively as a reading industry. It drives me nuts how there's very little analysis of the reader as a whole, because readers buy and borrow. And I think it's really interesting to think about what a new kind of mashup between the public and the private sector could look like. So in the last 15 years, UK libraries have made really huge strides. And could I just ask you to put up your hands if you've been into a library in the last year? Ooh, great, quite a lot, but quite a lot not, so maybe a bit of a challenge there. So they're leading the socialization of reading, and they're really beginning to make some ground on the digital front too. And this is Edinburgh's new library website called The Edge, which is attracting quite a lot of interest. They're also, they've created some really interesting marketing strategies that I think beat the socks off 3-for-2 pricing strategies. So the readers of today want to talk to each other in real time. They want to meet each other, and libraries are helping them. So the public are voting with their feet, and there's been some very interesting trends. We did some mapping of libraries' readings groups, which have trebled since 2004. And you'll have been, some of you, involved in those huge community reading events like One City, One Reads, which are attracting really, really big audiences. And libraries are working differently too, collectively. So that's Norwich, which is one of the busiest libraries in the country. They're working collectively too. We lead a program with them called the Summer Reading Challenge, which has huge numbers of families and children involved, that very interestingly blends the physical experience of promoting reading with a digital experience. And this is this year's Space Hop just coming up. So in the music industry, we've seen how online access has gone hand in hand with an explosion of audiences at live gigs. Consumers want iPod listening and live shared experiences. So could it go the same way with reading? And I think a new model of public and private sector collaboration has huge relevance here. There's already a really interesting era of publisher-library cooperation, which is starting to blend the live and the digital, the public and the private sector. We run a Reading Partners scheme, which brings together publishers and libraries, and it's going really stonkingly. 34 publishers are now involved. We're just celebrating our 5th anniversary. And the marketing and publicity departments are developing a real understanding of libraries' strategic significance to the reading industry. And it would be really fantastic in the next few years to see that understanding begin to be kind of reflected on the digital side of the industry too. So Reading Partners was founded on the premise that both sides need to expand the market for reading, libraries for social reasons, publishers for commercial reasons, and that there is commercial benefit to publishers of working with libraries. And the partners that we were talking to were convinced by the research, which shows a link between buying and borrowing, and I put a couple of those figures up there. And it was great to see you, Richard, pull up some of the evidence from our adult literacy scheme called the 6-Book Challenge, which shows just how much participants in adult literacy work change their buying behaviour and intentions after being pulled into the reading market by libraries. So publishers are finding that libraries can deliver huge, diverse audiences for their authors, for really big names and for debut authors. And I love Karen Geary's quote here about the public sector's very different marketing avenues, producing happy authors, happy readers, and happy sales figures, because we insist at book sales at these events. By working with libraries, publishers are finding that they can reach readers through a mixture of the physical and the digital. So with Random House, we're doing some really interesting work with readers groups, which kind of weave in a digital element. And with HarperCollins, we're just about to do some Skype author events. So I reckon that in delivering the readers of tomorrow, we'd be mad to ignore libraries' special role. It's in everybody's interests for libraries to be digitally active. It's not just their socialization of reading and their creative marketing approaches, but on top of that, of course, they're getting people digitally active who aren't digitally active. And I think it's easy in company like today's to forget that there's huge chunks of the population who are not digitally active at all. And libraries' community reach is going to be critical in a population that's going to change to become so much more ethnically diverse. How much do you understand about that market? Well, libraries can really help you. And I think there's something really interesting about the public's trust in libraries. And I think that trust is going to be just as important in the kind of digital world. And finally, libraries know how to get completely new people entering the reading market, either by tackling low literacy levels or by raising the aspirations of people who just don't want to engage with reading at all. And this slide is from a great project we've just been doing with Michelle Gale, with some Afro-Caribbean young women whose greatest aspiration, Michelle found, was to be footballers' wives. And they were mostly in pupil referral units, and we worked with them in workshops which kind of blended daily texts to their mobile phones with workshops, with an introduction to the library, with a whole package of activity to really change the way they thought about themselves as readers. So I guess I'm really interested today in exploring a challenge, which is how we might create a new fusion of public and private sectors to work as a collective force to develop the readers of tomorrow and to blend the physical and the digital. And it would be really great to come out of today with some key people interested in taking that work forward. It's obviously going to be essential to find an e-lending model that satisfies both libraries' need to provide digital access and doesn't undermine publishers' business models. But I hope we can think beyond that to some wider possibilities. Imagine a new approach to those absolutely enormous library audience databases, to market insight and consumer profiling that combines taking a look at readers as whole people that combine perhaps use of libraries, borrowing and buying, and other behaviour. Imagine the growth of thousands and thousands more library groups that are doing kind of online activity but also community-based activity. And we're just about to experiment with a kind of flash mob of library readers groups. Imagine a whole new workforce and careers that can move seamlessly across gaming, blogging, publishing, librarianship, and book selling. So I'm really excited about those possibilities, and I hope we can stop seeing libraries either as a digital threat or as the poor relation and move towards a really exciting new cooperative era.
All right.